A cube titled Digitizing Orson Welles' Heart of Darkness brings together faculty and students from Screen Arts and Cultures in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, LSA, University Libraries, the College of Engineering, Ross Business School, and the Stamp School of Art and Design. Please welcome Professors Hugh Cohen and Matthew Solomon, graduate student Vincent Longo, and undergraduate student Sydney Simoncini.
All right, that was about the eye. We're going to deal with the heart of darkness. The context is the year 1939. Hitler's troops were invading Poland. And while that was happening in Hollywood in 1939, Hollywood produced more outstanding films that year, the year of 1939, than they had ever had previously or ever would again. In fact, I'll mention a couple of them. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, you'll probably know about Capra. Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, Pygmalion, this could go on. The interesting thing about this is that I have a list here of 33 films made that year, released that year rather. And only one of them makes any reference to Germany. One that was called Confessions of a Nazi Spy. The previous year in New York, a brilliant young writer, producer, he did everything, actor primarily, broadcaster. He was called the Boy Genius. His name was Orson Welles. He had already done a radio program about an invasion, but it was the invasion of Earth by Martians. That same year, he did, to great applause, a modern dress version of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And he had the Roman soldiers dressed in fascist gear and doing fascist salutes. Now, Hollywood, in the Hollywood studio of RKO, the president of RKO wanted to sort of capitalize on Welles's nationwide fame, and he was a big name that year. And he offered him really an incredible offering that he could come to Hollywood and make a film out of any story he wanted. Welles naturally accepted. And the story he chose to do was The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. He had already done it on a radio version of it before this. And it's a story, for those of you who know it or don't know it, about an English ship captain, a steamboat captain, who was hired by a Belgian company to go to Africa and retrieve, if you've seen Apocalypse Now, you know the story, and retrieve one of their agents who had gone rogue and with humanitarian values had gone to Africa, but once he had gotten there, he had made himself into a god over the natives, and he was involved in stealing and killing in order to gain ivory more than any kind of humanitarian value. Welles' interesting thing is, Welles's version of that story, he changes it from a Belgian company to a German company. He has Mr. Kurtz, the villain of the piece. He has Mr. Kurtz surrounded by the Germans in that company. But near the end of the drama, the end of the screenplay, he has Mr. Kurtz say something about Hitler without actually referring to him by name. And here's what he says. There is a man now in Europe trying to do what I've done here in the jungle. He will fail, though in his madness he thinks he can't fail, but he will. The project Welles's project was finally, because of costs, because of the war, made it impossible for him to get the female star that he wanted. because of technical difficulties that things like he had a very long shooting schedule, spending much more money. Anyhow, the project was shelved. But the arcade studios told him that he could make another film in its place. And so in 2 years, the 23-year-old will be 25 years old, and he makes Citizen Kane. I'll turn it over now to my next colleague, who, though he looks like Orson Welles, is not.
Thanks, Hugh. So while our project will produce new knowledge about the heart of darkness, especially in its relationships to late 1939 anti-fascist discourse, it asks more important questions about digital publishing and archival accessibility. How should humanities scholarship get published in the 21st century? How do we make these rare archival materials located here at the University of Michigan Special Collections Library that are related to Heart of Darkness teachable and accessible, not only to educators and students at other universities, but also those at middle schools and high schools whose pedagogical and historical interests in these materials may vary greatly from our own. Our project aims to tackle this divide between academia and the general public by devising new types of scholarly communication, both in terms of including multimedia and even 3D content in humanities publications, but also in finding new ways of navigating these traditional types of communication. Our publication allows readers to page through Welles's fascinating script as they would any screenplay, with a historical set of annotations that provide a historical explanatory context for the Heart of Darkness. Our project also includes what we call an open source archive edition, insofar as readers will have full digital access to a wide variety of archival materials related to the film's failed production. And these materials include a variety of different media types. So we have production documents, we have intensive research documents about Nazism and colonialism, as well as radio broadcasts and even motion picture clips. Our project, though, also includes scholarly and creative materials created using these primary sources. So for example, here you can see the work of student artists who used the drawings that Welles added to the script to reimagine and animate sequences from the Heart of Darkness production. Because our project makes primary source material related to a canonical literary work available, we envision that it will be a great resource for teachers, scholars, and interested segments of the general public. Our project is fully supported by the most current research and scholarship, and with the multimedia and creative entry points, we envision it working to invite non-specialists to dig deeper into the historical record than they might otherwise.
Our current team is comprised of 10 undergraduate researchers, 2 men and 8 women, 1 doctoral student in the Department of Screen Arts and Cultures, 1 special collections curator and archivist, and 2 experienced professors, both in the Department of Screen Arts. Our project is not only multi-generational, with Professor Cohen, who began working on Heart of Darkness in 1972, and undergrads who are best described as neophytes before joining the team, but it is quite interdisciplinary as well. We have students studying a wide breadth of subjects here at the university, such as art and design, computer science, mechanical engineering, architecture, sociology, business, English, modern Greek, and of course, screen arts and cultures. Our project exposes its members to a variety of opportunities here at the university, and it's personally helped me to narrow down my intended path of study.
So one of the remarkable things about this collaboration has been its truly multi-generational quality. My colleague Hubert Cohen started studying Heart of Darkness before I was born. It was when he published that article. I was studying Orson Welles before my colleague Vincent Longo was born, and together we span the 3 generations that separate us from Orson Welles and from 1939. When we started this project, we didn't know exactly what shape it would take. We had this extraordinary document that existed in the archives, but and we thought it needed to have a wider audience, but we weren't sure what form it should take. We thought it's not exactly a book, it's not exactly a website, but it is something in between. And the virtues of that multi-generational collaboration are that it's allowed us to start to figure out, after really just a little more than a year, what this is going to look like in order to be accessible and relevant. We believe its story of insurgent fascism, of racial thinking, and of demagoguery has relevance today, but it's our undergraduates, our graduates, and our senior researchers sitting at the same table, having a conversation that are going to help us figure out how to get this material out so that people in the next generation and generations to come can learn from this unproduced film, this legendary unproduced work. One note, I do use a cane due to multiple sclerosis, but this is not the cane that I usually carry. This belongs to, or once belonged to, the maker of Citizen Kane, Orson Welles. It's one of the many treasures we have here at the University of Michigan Special Collections. It's also the one of the few things that our undergraduates couldn't figure out a way to scan. We can't digitize it, but we hope to make that which we can digitize available for you and for others. Thank you.